Welcome to Seltzer Squad, the podcast about staying sober in the city, with your hosts, Kate Sander and Jess Valentine.
Hey Squad, Natalie here, editor and producer of Seltzer Squad. Do you want another way to support the pod? Go to seltzersquadshop.com and have access to all of our merch. Treat yourself and support the squad at the same time. We have hats, stickers, backpacks, posters. Buy a gift for a sober friend or just treat yourself. You can find all of the classic Seltzer Squad sayings like slickest bitch around, be nice to yourself, and of course hangovers suck. I have a tank top that says slickest bitch around and I wear it to the gym and it confuses everybody. It's the best. Once again, go to seltzersquadshop.com or go to seltzersquad.com and hit the merch button to find all of our merch. Hey everyone, Natalie here, editor and producer of Seltzer Squad. Today's episode is sponsored by Audible. Are you like me and you can't be left alone with your own thoughts for more than 5 seconds at a time? I know I can't. If so, you should check out Audible. Audible is the home of millions of audiobooks and exclusive podcasts. You will never run out of content to listen to. If you're a fan of the show, you want to check out other sober content, books, and podcasts, or just want to read a book but want to keep your hands free while you clean, while you drive, while you're trying to fall asleep at night. If so, you would love Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/Seltzer Squad and you get your first month free. That's audibletrial.com/Seltzer Squad to get your first month free.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, Kate.
Hey, Squad. We are back again with another episode with Jac Walsh, as our friend Jessica is enjoying an extended honeymoon. I believe she's out of the state now. She was on a beach. Now she's somewhere else. I'm not totally sure where she is. But I hope she comes back refreshed and we miss her. But Jac, a lot of people were hitting us up about journaling. So I thought you could be like our journaling shaman. Well, I don't want to say shaman, but I have some thoughts about it. I've been a semi-lifelong journaler. I think I got like my first Snoopy diary when I was like 5. I still have it.
Did it have a little like lock?
It had a little lock on it, or like a little combination. But I feel like, I think we talked about it a little bit in your episode. I think I'm doing it wrong. When you tell me what you're journaling about versus what I think about when I'm journaling, I don't know. I feel like I need to hear your ways. Squad, are you guys into journaling? I know I can tell you guys that there are some therapeutic benefits to journaling, but maybe do you want to speak a little bit about it first, or do you want me to talk about some benefits? Pros and cons.
I'm interested to hear the benefits.
Okay, so
and then I'll see if I have also felt them.
If you agree.
Okay,
yeah. So I know I'm learning in school that journaling is definitely part of the take home or the homework process that we give to clients. I've been asked to do some journaling. Sometimes I roll my eyes at that when they give me that as homework, but I know that I do feel better when I'm journaling. There's a lot of different kinds of journaling. There's, like to-do list journaling, bullet journaling. There's reflective journaling where you are just reflecting on your life. I feel like maybe you're a reflective journaler. I think I'm more of a daily journaler where I'm just like, the weather is rainy. I am sad. Dear XOXO Kate, I'm still mad. There's art journaling, which I have done a little bit of. Actually, which one do you think you are? I'm going to grab one of my journals, actually, because
I think I'm a lot of journaling. Like a lot of.
How many do you have actively?
Actively right now, probably 6.
Stop.
Because, yeah.
Are you addicted to journaling?
Probably. No, because, I'm doing the artist way.
Okay.
Which that includes morning pages.
Okay, wait.
And we can get more into that.
Yeah, let's go back to why you went. Okay, this is like an example of one of my daily journals.
See, and this is my
doodly journals.
This is my morning pages journal. Oh, I love that. But I have a morning pages journal. I have a tarot journal because I pull a tarot card every morning, and I have a journal specific for that.
Do you feel like you missed something if you didn't hit all 6 journals every day? Like you're
Yeah,
off?
I don't hit all 6 every day for sure. Like I have one for therapy.
Okay.
A therapy journal. So, and I do that because I like to, with my therapy one, there's, I know that in therapy. So I know which one to pull from because at one time I just had a bunch of random ones and would write just wherever. And it was hard to reference. And I have found they really do help in referencing things when I need to look back on something.
I do agree with that.
If they're in like,
sorry
like
for people on Patreon. I'm walking around.
And I have a dream journal and I have a dream encyclopedia that is very in-depth.
All right. Well, this already seems too extensive for not only me, but the squad. One thing I was going to mention is that I did do the journaling thing all in one journal, and I bought these like colorful stickers from Amazon, and I was marking, and I do mark the pages because I can't do more than one. I can do one. I just need I agree with you though that like it needs to be marked. So I will like clip the page. If I had I jotted down a therapy note, I will mark my page with said color that corresponds with therapy.
See, exactly. And I think that's important. Like one thing is with the stickers with you or colored pencils or one tip I would say is get a journal that invests in something that speaks to you and that you love looking at.
Okay.
Because what I found is if it's just some you pick it up and you're just okay, I'll write in here. It does feel like work.
Yes.
But if you make it special and it's your thing and you can do whatever you want inside of it, then it's to me, it's it pulls me in more and it's more of a friend than just this thing I have to do. It's
I'm
not
neurotic about my journal, picking it out though. I have there's a lot of criteria for me to pick a good journal. I can't just go to Target and willy-nilly off the shelf. It is like a science.
Well, you know what I'm thinking? It's funny because a lot of my journals, I'm looking around. This one, my tarot journal, Tammy, my girl, got me them as gifts. I have another one that my friend got me that I write my dreams in. A lot of them, I don't know if I necessarily have gotten for myself. So maybe I'm going to send you a journal and you can use it.
Yeah, send me a journal. And I might use it. I told you I'm picky. Okay, just quickly. So I like a spiral bound journal because it lays flat. And you can I prefer that, not the books. I prefer a gridded paper so that I can sketch if I want to. And I write more. I write more neatly. Do you write on a blank page? You just go for it?
I have one blank page one journal that's all blank pages. No, this one just has the lines.
Okay, yeah. So
I have very, very messy handwriting.
This is a little small. I would like it to be maybe a couple inches bigger, but I did do I collage the cover of this one for myself.
Oh, I like that. That's cute.
So yeah, and then I just sort of mark the pages with the colors.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's important if you have some way of just being able to. So when you want to reflect back and look, there's just an easier way to do it then. So it can be. For me, because I have a lot of journals, it was just, I'm going to do it. It just I didn't set out to be this one's for this. It's just one day I'm wow, I write in different notebooks for all the things. And so I like being able to go back and look at them. But yeah, the artist way, if you want me to talk about kind of how I started with that recently.
Yeah.
I was kind of, with work, I was, I'm working corporate marketing. I was just kind of in a place where I wasn't really feeling called. And I've known that for a while, that that's not my dharma, so to speak, my calling. And so when I journaled before, it would be more that reflective, that you're thinking of writing and morning pages. Okay, let me take a step back. I was all right, you know what? I want to do one of these self-help quote, books that I have to get inspired. And so I went through some books and I had The Artist's Way. I've had it for years.
What was in your lineup?
Oh, I have to go look over my
Do you know?
Sacred Contracts is one. Sacred Contracts by Carolyn Myss. That's one of them. The Buddhist Way, Living Wicca. I'm looking at my
okay.
And I have the Untamed journal. Kay got me that a while ago when it first came out, and I haven't used that yet. So they were all kind of sitting there. And The Artist's Way, I thought I knew.
Did you get the workbook? Okay, so The Artist's Way, we can go into what that is, but did you get the workbook and the book?
So it all comes in one.
Okay.
I have the 25th anniversary one, and so it's all one. And Julia Cameron is who wrote The Artist's Way. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is 25-year edition. Like, I didn't realize it was out that long. Then I started going through it, and I see week 1, week 2. Never knew that it was a weekly course.
I recently looked at it, like, I think I have it as an ebook because I revisit it, like, I don't know, every 3 years or something.
Right. And I couldn't believe that I had the book for so long and never knew it was a weekly course. I knew about morning pages, which she talks about those, and they're called artist dates. I've heard about those and I've done morning pages before, but never knew it was a course. And so when I saw that, I thought, oh, wow, I'm going to do that as kind of my direction. And so I have work that I can do, like my job, pay the bills. Yes. And then I also have this creativity that's important to me that I want to, look into more. And The Artist's Way talks about how we all have this artist inside of us that is childlike, and not in a immature kind of way, but you have to nurture that artist. And so that's what the artist dates are for, where every week you take yourself out, and it's not necessarily like out to a fancy dinner. It's actually like go to somewhere that's like I was thinking of like going to like a trampoline park, which I would never do, but something fun that when you're there, you're like, or like bowling. I was thinking going like, yeah. And you go by yourself. Where I live, we have a sand volleyball courts, and I thought about just getting some like buckets and going and playing in the sand. Like that could be one. So it's something where you just have time for yourself, but something that you wouldn't necessarily do weekly. And then morning pages are when you wake up, you write 3 pages longhand, like not type them, 3 pages. And it's like subconscious, like you just start writing. So, and it took me a little bit to understand, okay, I don't understand what that means. What do you mean just like sit down and start writing? And so when I think about, now that I've done it for 3 weeks,
you're an expert.
Pretty much every morning. I haven't done it every morning, but now I can at least tell the difference.
Yeah.
Between
you can. Okay.
The writing. Yeah, I can. So I am an expert.
Yeah.
I would say that the reflective writing is more of the seed of the idea, and what I'm reflecting on is in my head. And so it goes through my limbs, and then when I write it on the paper, it's born.
Okay.
On the paper. So the seed started in my head, and then it's on the paper. That's like the birth of it. Morning pages, the seed is the writing.
Okay. So you're just kind of emptying your brain. Yeah.
I'm not thinking about what I'm going to write beforehand.
Got it. Okay.
I sit down and then I'm thinking as I'm writing, but I didn't, it wasn't a seed in my head before.
Okay.
And then, so I feel like the seed is the on the page. And then I feel like the birth of that action is what I do that day.
Got it. Can you give us an example from your journal if you feel comfortable?
Yeah, I can.
Like, what's the first line? Is it like slept like shit?
Well, let's see.
Had weird dreams.
It is cold. The first day I did it on August 22nd was the first day of the Artist's Way 12-week course. And then I'll give you like my last day on September 8th. I said, just start writing. And the practice of morning pages, I come back to that. Just start writing.
Okay.
So that was the last time and the first time like I started it. But an example would be, so I told you how I was familiar with morning pages. And I always thought it was because I heard it somewhere along the way. It's just one of those things that we hear about. And before week 1, she has about a 20-page intro that goes into different things. And I learned during that she's sober in recovery.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm telling you, it's like everybody that I end up connecting with and I consider me connecting with her like through her words, they end up being sober always.
That's crazy.
It's amazing, right? Dude, and she talks about in the book, she's like the last week I read was saying how like your friends, you know, you have to be kind of selfish because you're taking this time to like nurture your artist. And and she said, and some of your friends, well, they're called crazy makers in your life. She calls them like people that stir up things, or they know you're on a deadline and they'll call you and be like, hey, I know you're busy, but I got to tell you this. And you're like, but you just said, you know, I'm busy.
Yeah.
And so it's like getting the crazy makers out of the way for 12 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, maybe right now they're not good. One of the exercises is that week you actually drew a circle and you wrote dots and you put people in there that you can count on in that circle. And then also the topics that are important to you, like getting enough sleep, you know, and then you actually put people outside of that. And then I had some people that I put on the cusp where I like wrote their name on the inside and the outside. You were on the inside, but you were. But it also was, but she talks about how just like your drinking friends aren't excited when you quit drinking, you're nurturing this artist, so it's like new to them if you've never done something like this before. And so there is that recovery speak that just kind of flows with, because she actually talks about when you're discovering this artist in you, it's like a recovering of the artist, of that person. And so again, I thought I heard of morning pages just along the way in my, you know, thing. Well, I started reading the intro, and as I'm reading it, I'm like, I've heard this before, but when did I hear this before? By the time I was done with the intro, I realized when I had my internship in Hollywood, I interned for, it was called New Light Media. It was a nonprofit production agency. And so I interned in Hollywood, and I had blocked out, he had me and the other intern do the artist way.
Okay.
And I remember, because she has you sign a contract at the beginning that says, and I remember thinking, what are we doing? Like signing this contract. But what I remembered was we did morning pages and then he read them.
Oh.
And after reading this intro, and the more I'm reading of it now, that was a huge violation.
Sure.
She even says not to read your own morning pages, because especially if you're,
I didn't know that.
If you're she says if you're recovering, you're gonna think your writing is bad if you read this, and you're not judging it. You're just out there to like get stuff out, and you're doing the practice of the writing. So she even says put it in an envelope, burn it, put it in an envelope, put it away for a month or two, but no one is supposed to read them. Of course, like I'll share mine, you know, but the fact that he had us, I remember he had us give them to him and he read them.
Fucked up.
And and so I didn't realize.
So the point
that
is, don't share your pages with anybody.
No, and I didn't know at that point really how much of the process that is to not share that. But for someone to ask of that is an authoritative person over me was just, so I think I just like blocked out doing the artist way, because he had us do it.
Probably had a bad taste in your mouth about it.
I didn't remember any of it. And so when I realized that the day before I was starting week 1, I was just like blown away that's how I remembered, like, that's how I knew about it the whole time, because I did do it. And so the next morning on my first day, when I started writing, I didn't know what I was going to write. I just said, like, I've done morning pages before, but I didn't know what was behind them. And then I said, when I read the intro, I remembered I did the artist way before. And then all of a sudden I just turned it into a letter to the person that ran the internship.
Are there any rules though? There are no rules, right?
The only rule is you wake up in the morning, you do it. One of your first things that you do. Okay. And you write it with like a pen or pencil. Yeah. 3 pages.
Because I thought it was more like free association, but you did, at least on your first day, pick a topic.
Well, I didn't know that I was going to pick a topic. Right. So it was like I started writing and then that just came out. And so when I started writing it, I just ended up writing him a letter. And I said, you don't get credit for anything that I write moving forward. Anything
I had no idea you were hanging on to that.
None.
Right.
And on Sunday, I was a little nervous because I'm thinking, well, great, I'm going to think about him and what a slime ball he was every day now because I'm going to be doing this morning. And so again, I didn't know I was going to write this until I was in it, but I wrote, I'm not giving you any credit for anything I write moving forward. And I'm not going to think about you anymore when I write these. And I honestly like released it in that moment. And when I was done, I like was kind of buzzing because I just couldn't believe that came out of me. Because I'm so used to having this seed, like, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm really upset about this guy. I'm going to sit down and like write him a letter.
Sure, yeah.
So it was so different actually.
Right. Okay, I get what you mean about the seed happening.
Yes. So that's how it's been.
Okay, how has it evolved in the last 3 weeks?
So I've given even more over in terms of surrendering to opening it up. And like opening up my morning pages notebook, and I'll look at the wall and just say, there's the wall. Like I'm really just surrendering into like, I'm not coming from a place of anywhere. You don't even realize how much stuff like for me was like is in my head until I try not to think about something that's in my head. And so when I was sitting there writing the one day, like I'm looking at the wall and then I wrote, oh, I'm kind of tired this morning. Last night, I didn't sleep well. And I said, and then I ended up talking about how I heard something in the middle of the night. I got up. I went in my one bathroom. This like stand I have with all my hair products on it shattered everywhere. Glass. My cats like knocked it over.
Yeah.
And then I was like, that took me into, ended up writing about how in that moment, I never even, first of all, I ran towards the noise. So I wrote about how, going that way. I didn't get up and say like, oh, I better call 911. Or I didn't get up and like hide in my bedroom. I like got up and sprinted to that bathroom.
Right.
And then I wrote about how I didn't even realize this again until I was writing. But I wrote how, and when I cleaned that up, it never occurred to me like, don't clean it up because it's 11:30 at night. And it was like, I knew like I was sober. I had a good day. I was not in the middle of some stressful thing. I was going to clean up the mess. That was glass all over. And I said, I could have like not cleaned it up at all and just shut the door and went to bed. I could have just cleaned up the glass because there were huge pieces of glass. And then I wrote too, like when I'm writing, I find that I'm very attention like to details. And so I'll say the glass was so sharp. It was like a hurtful word on a wounded heart.
Why do you think you go there? Because I don't go there. This is where we're different.
This I don't go there in my reflective pages where I want to get something out. This is again, I didn't plan on going there.
Yeah.
But because I have a freedom to write whatever it's not about like a shopping list.
Sure.
It's not about my tarot card. It's not about my intention for the day. It's about whatever. And so that attention to detail, she writes in the week 2 about her grandmother, and her letters were so detailed, her grandmother, and her grandma didn't have like a great, what we would say like, oh, such a happy life. But in her letters, she wrote in such detail, like play cards, like the mundane things became bigger. And I know I have so many letters to my gram that are like that. And so I've noticed I've been writing, like explaining things in detail, like the sharpness of the glass was like a wound, like on an open heart. Because I wanted to describe how sharp these pieces of glass were.
Sure.
And feel it. And so I could have, like I said, shut the door, but I cleaned it all up. I took the broom, did that. I got the wet Swiffer thing, did all that. And then I left the door open and went to bed. And then as I wrote that, I'm like, I left the door open. Like where I'm at now in my life, I don't have to keep the door closed to hide anything. There's nothing bad, quote bad, dirty, messy that I'm hiding anymore. And so I can go to bed in peace because I clean up the mess when it's there. I didn't ask for that mess to happen. I would have preferred not to wake up in the middle of the night, but shit happens, and that's how it is in life.
Yeah.
And so it's
a good
like,
metaphor for sobriety.
And then I like look at my notebook and I'm like, where did that just come from?
Yeah.
Because I literally sat down and was like, there's the wall.
Yeah.
It's 6:32, in the morning. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have to close the door anymore.
Do you
and
write before Mary J. Blige and Starbucks or after?
After.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Before. Okay. No, I do. I really try to do it before I feed the cats first. That's about it. But, and there's times where I had a Charlie horse the one night, and I woke up the next morning and I knew I had to run that morning to stretch out my leg, because overall for that day, that was going to serve me more than the morning pages were. And I'm not going to do morning pages later on in the morning, because that's not what they're for. That could be another type of journaling.
Sure.
But I've been consistent on, like, if I don't get it done in this time frame, then I don't do it. And that has been a surrender too.
Yeah.
Because, there's a check-in at the end of the week that you do to yourself, but it says, how many days did you do morning pages? And I know you feel me on this.
Want to be
I like to
perfect.
Say all the days.
Yeah.
But I say I did them 5, and I'm actually proud of myself, because I had this one other thing that was a higher priority for that day. And I was able to do that, so that was something that having the seed go here has like connected me to writing again in a way that is like fun and exploratory, instead of just like me regurgitating thoughts in my head in another way.
Yeah. I love that.
And I can help. I feel like I was writing the other morning about our past. And again, I was going somewhere and then it like flipped. I started writing about like my past, and how a lot of us, I feel like, walk other people's paths that they want for us. And when we do that, they've already paved that path because it's theirs. We're just walking on it. So we're just walking along. And then I said, and so when we look over and see what could be our path, it just looks like, and I just pictured like a forest with like just like tons of like weeds and overgrown trees. And it just is like, how am I ever going to get through that? And so for anything, recovery, boundaries, codependency, we just are like, you know what, we're on this paved path. I mean, we didn't create it or anything. It's kind of not what we want, but it's easy. So even though it's not easy, but we'll just keep going on that, because look over there. There's no way I'm going to get through that. And then it's like when I was writing this, I said, but when we take a step back and think, wait, I'm going to have to do work to carve out that path that I want. So it starts with dreaming. First, you start dreaming what path you want. You don't have to have that paved path. You can actually have weeds there and a secret portal that you go through. And I was like, the dreaming comes first, then the work, then you create the path.
Yeah, you got to get excited for it. Yeah. And decide what you get clear on what you want, right?
Right. And I'm like, now my path, in terms of like how I see it, it's like, I have a purple sky in my path. My cats like walk on their like back legs, like by my side. I have like whoever I want to love, like right, like in tandem with me, and it's like, I said, I have palm trees that change color like fall leaves, because that's how I want to envision my world. And I've built that because of the work I've done, but also before that was the dream. And so it looks like we want it and feels different than when we walk someone else's path, because we created it. But again, I woke up that morning not thinking about any of that.
Yeah.
And I just started writing it. And so when I wrote that, then it's like, okay, now the action is for me to go take that, what I'm saying my path is, and make sure I continue to cultivate that. And so that's why I want to talk about writing.
Wonder also, right? Like wonder back into your life that we're just programmed out of, I guess, by going through the motions. I love that.
Totally. Yeah. And it's amazing what I've learned and doing these morning pages, what we actually have in us, and I like to write. That's the thing. Like, I like writing, and I didn't realize how much of a task kind of it had become until I did this. And it's like I dipped down a little deeper into something that she's actually like calls forth, and then you read these affirmations afterwards that she wrote, but then you write your own in week 1. And one of the affirmations I have is about my handwriting, because my handwriting is so messy. And I just had a thing with like my handwriting, but I write, like, my handwriting is as like unique as my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because every morning when I would see it, and I have dyslexia, so like sometimes I write things like backwards, or I'll get frustrated. And so when I read that affirmation after I write the morning pages, it's like I look at my pages now, and it's like my DNA, like on the
Mm-hmm.
pages.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really been a like transformative way of writing. And I feel like when people say to me, how do you write, or what do you do? I'm scared to write. And I think a lot of times it's because it might be one of the first times that, that person or whoever, you sit with yourself. And that's
Well, you want to do,
place.
I want to do it right. So I like sit down, there's a blank page, there's nothing to do. I think that's why the therapy homework is easy, because it's like, what does family mean to you? Right? Like, okay, write about that. Like, that's a prompt. So I can write about that. But if it's just me and the paper, a blank piece of paper, like, no one's validating that except for me. So I don't know where to begin. So I think that like I have done the morning pages, I'll obviously inconsistently, because that's my vibe. But yeah, I mean, I think just getting up and writing, like, I am here, I'm sitting on the floor, it's cold out, like, none of that matters. And I agree with you that it does take you to deeper thoughts. And especially like in the morning when you're a little fuzzy, I think that there is like something magical to that. I have done, so I had read this book called The Clarity Cleanse. I think I might have talked about this before. It's a Goop recommendation. So trigger warning, I'm going to talk about Goop. It's in the book. He talks about how we hold trauma in different places in our body. I can't remember exactly what the whole book is about, but the takeaway from it for me was about getting clear on things in your life. And one suggestion that the writer made was to do a 12-minute exercise called purge emotional writing. Every emotion has a charge, and the positive or negative energy an emotion generates has a real measurable impact on our bodies. The act of writing allows us to physically release some of that charge, much in the same way we release tension during sex or exercise. Burning the page, which happens at the end of the exercise, allows us to purge even more of that charge and serves as a symbol of letting go. If you can release negative energy on a regular basis, it doesn't accumulate. You can look at this exercise as an act of freedom. Whenever you release your emotions, you lighten your burden so you don't have to carry it with you to your next experience. Okay, that's from
What is
Goop.
it again? Purge? What's it called?
Purge emotional writing. It's like PEW. PEW, Purge Emotional Writing 12.
Oh, okay.
So it's 12 minutes long. So it starts much the same way, where you're not necessarily picking something, but the way which I felt the most, I guess, release from it would, like, I would pick a particular situation. Like, I'm not getting along with X, right? Like, I remember at the time I was using it the most often, it was in a difficult work situation. So like, I feel like my boss doesn't like me, right? And I would start that way. And by the end of the 12 minutes, I could see it from my perspective, from her perspective, like, and it totally just did take away the charge from the emotion. So I think, yes, I do see the benefits of writing. I think for me, it's hard to get into the habit. So do you have any tips? I guess, obviously you're doing the artist way, you're doing something every single morning, but do you have a normal ritual in which you sit down? Do you try to do it every single day? Do you did say that you gave yourself a break if you don't do it, but for the rest of us who maybe aren't doing morning pages, what do you think is some ways to get started?
I think, and I totally feel that with the charge, like the release of that, there is something about getting it out of you. And I think not typing it, writing it is that motion that's just different. And so I think to start out, if you set a goal or just, and it's hard to, you're not running a marathon. So it's not like a training where I have to get ready. And so it's like, I don't want it to feel like a task, for people. So I would say just get a timer and not on your phone, Like I actually have an hourglass up on my desk with like the stand, like Days of Our Lives style. That is a half hour. And it's so funny. I like timed it the one day because I didn't know if it was 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So I had my phone like right beside it. 30 minutes. Well, it was like 28 something. So little stand got stuck. But I would say set a timer that's not on your phone, and just write for that amount of time. And maybe start with, if you're writing on a Monday, write about Monday.
Right.
Like, what are Mondays for you? What are Tuesdays for you?
Right.
And then maybe after that first week, write about like 1 through 10. Like, what's number 1 mean to you? Like, if you need to find topics that aren't associated necessarily, you don't have to write about how you're feeling to get in the practice of doing it. So I think if you say, I'm going to write 10 minutes a day, and the first week, I'm just going to write about what a Monday is, or like that day of the week. Nothing to do really with what my day is on a Monday, or what, you know, anything like that. But like, tonight's Monday Night Football, it's taco night, and whatever. But you're committing to writing for that 10 minutes a day. And then as you start writing about Mondays, then by the time you get to Thursday, maybe Thursdays will have something about last Thursday. And then you'll tie in, you're start to pull things out. And so what you're doing, it feels like a task at first because you want to start writing, you know, actually turns into something that you can start seeing the benefits of. And then you'll realize maybe you don't even set that timer anymore, because you'll sit down and like, to me, it calls to me to sit and write it. Like, I have to sit down. I had an issue with my family earlier this summer. And as soon as it was over, I sat down and wrote pages. I had to get it all out, you know? And so I think it will morph into that. But to start out, I think just setting a timer and writing about, you know, fruit.
Yeah.
Or, you know, just pick topics that aren't related to you.
That aren't emotionally charged per se. Yeah. Right.
Because I think sometimes at first, when you want to get in that habit, it's because you know, we see journaling and writing as it has to be with your emotions. But to get in the practice of it, and if you want like a prompt, because I do think that can be helpful when you're starting out too. It's writing about not something that's connected to you. But I have no doubt it will very quickly turn into that, because I think, like Julia Cameron says, you have something in you that wants to come out, you know, and I've heard before, you know, people are afraid to journal because they don't want anyone finding it.
Yeah. I think that's something, I mean, I'm not like afraid of that, but it's two things for me, really. It's like, one thing, I want to like leave a legacy of myself behind, right? So someone can like know me if I were to die. And then two, the second thing is like, I would feel terrible. Like, if we're always just, the reason why I don't write very often is if I'm only writing about my problems and then I do die and somebody does find it, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, even though I know that that's not the point. So I've been keeping like a digital journal that I write with like a pencil, and that's been more helpful. But I think that it's also a barrier to just like letting it rip and keeping like just, you know, a regular journal. Because I think the most thrilling thing for me about writing is going back to review it later. Like, I can go back to I have my Snoopy journal. Like, I can look at my little 5-year-old handwriting and look at what I was going through that like I don't, and that's why it motivates me to keep doing it, because I want to one day go back and like read Kate from 2022's like thoughts and feelings. Because I can do it when I was like 11 and 16 and 19 and so on and so forth. So that for me is the motivation. Then I can just go back and check in on myself. But I feel like I've been stuck for a little bit.
That part of it, because I'm thinking like right over here, I have my Grams. She wrote in a diary every single day. So I have, and she has a 5-year one that I have, and it's from like 79 to 80, and I was born in 81, so my aunt and my mom like gave me that one, and she wrote just 2 lines a day, like 2 or 3 lines a day, and on one page it has 5 years each way. But and if you read that, there's a lot of laundry and a lot of, you know, it's task oriented. But I look at that and think, I know there was so much more to my gram than just doing chores all day. And so I think it was, especially in that time frame, women that I think we've evolved so much in the fact of being like, no, we have feelings. We're not crazy because we do, you know, and the way we can journal now, even if I journal my day, I don't know if my gram felt like she could own those feelings and put them out there because of the culture back then and different things. So I think that's amazing to see.
My
looking
aunt
back
found my grandma's journal and didn't want anybody to read it. She was like, I can't, you know, I don't want anyone to see this. I'm going to protect this. And I was like, well, I want to read it. And I was talking about it with my stepmom, and she was like, well, I wouldn't want anybody to read mine. And I was like, but I want to know you as a person. Like, I don't think anyone's reading it facetiously, like trying to dig up, and grandma's dead. Like, who cares if like her secrets are in here, you know, like the show's over. But like, I want to know her as more than just my grandma. I want to know her more than just a mom. Like, I want to know her as a woman. Like, if my stepmom had a journal and it was left behind, like, I want to know her, you know what I mean? I want to know her deeper. Yeah. Because I care about her.
When my parents met, you know, my gram has in there, because that was a couple years before I was born. It says like, oh, you know, like talking, like she talks about, it's very quick, but it just was like, oh, like he came over, and I love like seeing that. And it is like a legacy.
Totally.
Of my it's like my timeline before I was even here. I can read that. And so I think that is important, like that, like you said. And I feel like I did have, when I was in California, I was with somebody who I moved in with, and my journals were and are, you know, they were so precious. And I just didn't feel safe bringing them into the house when I moved in. Now, you think that would have been a red flag to not move in with someone that you don't feel comfortable with, but I did it anyways. And I don't know, a couple of weeks later, he started telling me things that he would have no idea about. Because I just, you know, he didn't know me 5 years ago. And I'm like, how do you know that? Finally admitted, he broke in my car, got in my trunk, and read my journals. Okay.
Do you feel betrayed by that?
I felt,
I mean, at the time, of course, like the action itself. Yeah.
No, and even if they were sitting out on the table and he took and read them, I mean, there was a whole other layer that you broke into my car. You didn't even know they were in there. But so, but on just the level of like, you read that was the first time I had ever had that, oh, people would like use this against me, you know? And I was and it wasn't even anything wild. You know, sometimes I think what we're writing in here is like, it really wasn't that wild, you know? But I was like, he said something, you know, you said you didn't love this person. I'm like, what I write in my journal is not verbatim like facts. That's how I'm feeling in that moment.
Yeah, it's mostly fiction, actually. Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Like, and I just felt so like dirty. Like, I really felt like someone got into my mind, like took something from me. And so he was really like, I really didn't drink that much back then. He was a heavy drinker, and he passed out, and I took 3 journals and ripped them all up. Yeah. Like it, I remember like being there, like in the living room, just like ripping them up. Then I put them in a plastic bag and walked them down to the dumpster, threw them away. And I was just like devastated because they were from college.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and this was like 4 years after college. So they had been through
They're
times,
old,
like my internship, like all the like moving to LA, like all the things. And so about a couple of days later, he comes back and telling me more stuff. And I'm like, how do you know this? Turns out he went in the dumpster.
Oh God, fuck. I feel like I don't even want to hear the rest of this story.
Got the ripped pages and like put them together and was, And so I ended up like finding them in his truck and like throwing them away like somewhere in a public place so like he can find them again. But point being, like, I can say I do get that fear.
Yeah, of course.
Because I had it. I didn't actually have the fear until it did happen
to you. Yeah.
And I just was but you know, it just was a reminder of who we put around us.
I mean, you could do like they do on Yellow Jackets where they have, remember she has the journal in the safe, all those journals.
No, what's Yellow Jackets?
It's a TV show. She has like all these journals from like when she was in a plane crash,
gosh.
and she
Hides them away.
Like, she has a safe in her closet, and I mean, like, that's a viable option.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is. And I feel like for me now, everyone that I would bring around me, I trust.
Of course. Yeah.
Fully. You know, and also I don't have, like, if you want to read that, and let's say there is stuff in there about you, you chose to pick up my journal and read it. So and now I can distinguish go ahead and, like, you're choosing to look at it. So, you know, and so it's like not on me if you are offended by what's in there, because I'm not reading it to you or asking you to read it. You did it to yourself, and it's my own private. It's like, you can't jump in my mind right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, I do get that fear that people have, but don't let that hinder you never, like, doing it. That's why I think if you start writing about mundane things, and tactical things, you know, around, right, exactly, that might help, like, the practice of, you know, writing.
Okay, so I heard some of our squad members they were talking on Facebook, and they were wondering if you had a journaling squad, and you kind of do.
Yeah. So
how can people get involved?
I found that this was a struggle with women that I was, like, in recovery with. And so I was like, hey, why don't we, like, have this journal squad? And we just started sending, like, Marco Polos back and forth, and just started working like that. But then I was thinking, what if we did kind of get more people involved and just make it bigger? And it's helpful to kind of bounce ideas off each other. And also, it's like, oh, you're struggling with this.
It's also
like,
accountability. Like, we're going to journal now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, this is the prompt for the week, or like, this is what, and so I think it's helpful to have that accountability, and also to realize that what you're afraid of about writing, or what you find a struggle, a lot of people might also, and then that takes the burden off. And then it can get to the point where it's like, oh my God, and I wrote about this, and oh wow, that's cool. Then I wrote about that. And I think, like, I love the exercise of, like, both of us looking at the same thing.
Me too.
And then, like, listing out just 10 words that we would use to describe it, and how different your words could be. And I'm like, wait, you thought that was red? I thought that was orange.
Right.
And just how then you can kind of get, I think, a perspective of that person, and be like, oh, so you see things maybe in this way. So if you come at me this way, I might know a little more about you like that. So I think that's really cool. So
very valid. Okay, so
I would love to get some.
You're opening
writing.
the squad. You're opening the journal squad. How can people sign up? You guys can go to theseltzersquad.com. We have a sign up for our mailing list box. Put your email in the box. When Jac is leading a class, she will send an email via the Seltzer Squad to anybody that wants to join, with dates, details, and information. That's how you can become part of Jac's Journal Squad.
And I just started an Instagram for the Journal Squad. And so it's Yellow Brick, and it's YELLOWBRCK. So there's no I.
Okay. At Yellow Brick.
Yes. And so
follow her. She'll have deets.
You know that my Instagram is There Is No Oz, because I feel like we have to do the work, and we also are the magicians and all the things. And so when I was thinking about writing, I thought, follow the yellow brick road, and how one brick builds the road. And then also we're going towards Oz, which is towards ourselves, right? So it's like, we want to keep that following. So, like, yellow brick journaling is kind of the
one page at a time.
theme. That's right. Exactly.
Well, thank you as usual for coming on.
Yeah, that was awesome. I love talking about writing.
But the squad can find you. There Is No Oz, or follow Yellow Brick. And until we meet again, Jac,
be nice to yourself.
Don't forget.
Hangovers suck.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Every review helps other listeners find us. Music by Jac Walsh. Art by Kate Sander. For show notes and resources, check out seltzersquad.com.